justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
We won't relent. We will fight until the end. We have been sent to protect and to defend. We won't relent. We will fight until the end. We have been sent to protect and to defend. Let justice flow like a river, flow from the peaks to the ground. Let justice flow like a river, till only freedom is found. We count the cost. We will pledge our very lives. All nation close, but the kingdom will rise. Let justice flow like a river, flow from the peaks to the ground. Let justice flow like a river, till only freedom is found. Let justice flow like a river, flow from the peaks to the ground. Let justice flow like a river, till only freedom is found. The coastlines will know, the coastlines will know, the coastlines will know your justice. The islands will know, the islands will know, the islands will know your justice. The nations will know, the nations will know, the nations will know your justice. The coastlands will know, the coastlands will know, the coastlands will know your justice. Let justice flow like a river, flow from the peaks to the ground. Let justice flow like a river, till only freedom is found. Let justice flow like a river, flow from the peaks to the ground. Let justice flow like a river, till only freedom is found. We won't relent. We will fight until the end. We have been sent to protect and to defend.
Hello, everyone. Hope y'all are having a good evening. Who do we got? There's Joe, Sean, 420 with a new intro. Look forward to hearing that. Pat, Craig, Cheryl, good to see y'all. All y'all, Echo, be charming. Is there anybody I missed? I don't see anybody I missed. Hope y'all have had a good weekend. Hope it's not too crazy where you're at. We got a lot of people pitching in. We've got the community center and the food banks, restaurants. To make sure nobody goes hungry around here. Hey, Sean.
Hello.
How are you this evening?
No, I'm just checking the mic. How are we doing?
Sounds good.
Great.
It's been bad over there. Craig, where are you at? Just state. You don't have to tell me exactly where you're at. Our country. I think is he one of them in Britain? And yeah, UK. Okay. I know you guys have it. So that song was a whole bunch of different countries that got together to create it. I thought that was pretty cool.
It was nice.
So tonight we're on 12th Amendment. And it's
Correct.
long.
My eyes kind of rolled back in my head, but I sent you a breakdown from Grok that we can use to kind of frame it with its and I asked Grok to explain it in layman's terms. So that could
Yes.
be something useful. And then there's things I catch Grok saying and in the document itself that kind of just kind of make me raise an eyebrow. It's interesting. The more you read, the more you're like, huh, that's interesting. Why'd they do that? Or why'd they decide this?
I know.
So
Yeah, I read the amendment and then I read your thing. Hey, Sharon. And I had already looked up some stuff on it.
yeah, and there's some cases, and it's kind of it's not a relevant thing, but it's kind of a relevant thing for us in California. And that today, well, they've been accepting the ballots, but tomorrow is our special election for redistricting or not, Prop 50, because Newsom is obviously scared that with the growth of the GOP that they could admit to, that he's threatened, and so he wants to redistrict because he's claiming Texas. He's going to
Yes.
have all these GOP congressmen with their redistricting, and I don't think Newsom gets. Californians hate him.
Yes.
They may not be MAGA. They may not be Republicans. Californians do not like Newsom. And I'm hoping that dislike of him carries through.
I remember, didn't they do a petition trying to get rid of him? And there was a whole bunch of signatures.
Yeah, he had a recall election, and that was Larry Elder that was his opponent, and the media, along with the media called him the white face of racism or whatever, or the black face of racism. So he had some lawsuit stuff going on with that, and the thing I'm going to get into this because this is where, folks, you have to be able to read to understand. And he kept his governorship by pulling a fast one that the media was complicit in. The way the ballot was set up for that recall, and let me know if you want me to wait for more people to get on, or if you want me to go ahead and dive into this.
Oh, go ahead, because this is a long one, so I figure it's going to take us a good bit to get through it.
Okay. Well, the way that recall was set up out here was first, they split the ballot in two different ways and saying, first, should Governor Newsom be recalled? Now, if you voted yes, you would have then the second part of the ballot was who should he be replaced by? And then if you voted no, get this, if you voted no, then you would pick who he should be replaced by. Now, listen to this. Larry Elder won every county in California
Oh,
to
wow.
replace, which means his numbers were great enough that the Democrats who said no and would pick them their Democrat second placer were less, which means the no votes in that first question were less. But to audit those recall election ballots, thanks to COVID, we are past our statute of limitations for that. Newsom, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the legislature conspired during COVID that instead of keeping, ballots in perpetuity or whatever, they would only keep them now, I believe, for 3 years, and that includes the electronic records online, because COVID makes your computer so sick. So I apologize in advance. Your channel may be, the YouTube censorship network may, hit this episode. Hopefully, we're streaming it elsewhere on Rumble and other locations, but that's the trick they pull, though. Besides censoring it, is wording things in a ballot, and then KTLA News. KTLA News reports that majority of counties were won by Larry Elder, but Gavin Newsom is still governor. It's like no. For Larry to have won every county, it means the majority of every county voted yes to replace Gavin. So part of that, if you look at Elder, he has what we call basically Larry Elder is very close with the Kennedys, and Larry Elder and RFK Jr. are both alike on one thing. They want Sirhan out of prison, and that would allow Sirhan to go about and expose the truth about what happened to RFK Sr. CIA doesn't want that, and that's why Larry Elder has a CIA handler attached to him. So when he did his press conference last night, you would have spotted said handler next to him. Now, meanwhile, Gavin Newsom, when he came in, it was like all the votes weren't even counted yet. It was like 6 or 5 in the evening, and Newsom was like, hey, I want to thank all my voters, this and that. But Newsom looked like he had seen a ghost. Mm-hmm. He had that scared, shaken look. He realizes that on paper he really did lose, but Larry Elder wasn't going to contest it. That's the key thing. This was post J6, so you weren't going to have conservatives with the gumption to go storm the Capitol, which wouldn't have made a difference. But the point is, both Larry Elder knew to stay quiet, and Gavin Newsom probably got a little tap on the shoulder from Nancy Pelosi or somebody else saying, we just pulled a favor and had Larry Elder shut down so you can keep your governorship. So shut up, sit tight, and wait for orders. Like, go back through the archives, folks. Find the news footage. Newsom looked shaken, and no one had seen him for a few days too. And everyone was saying, well, that's because he had COVID, this and that. Like, no, yeah. He looked like a man who was scared, like deer in the headlights scared, because he knew California did not want him after all that lockdown stuff he did. So now he's trying to redistrict the state because he knows we still hate him out here. We hate it. Most Californians that I talk to that are conservative have a visceral dislike of him, and those that are liberal think, of course, he's not doing anything for them or for Gaza, or for pick the rights of whoever, and they would be right in that regard too. He's trying to placate that he's a moderate now, so he's going and failing on talk shows. All they do is put up a non-softball question. He folds like a cheap paper cup. So, yeah, the 12th Amendment that we're doing tonight is about elections, and particularly the president and vice president. And, elections matter. So I made a point, went down today, turned my in-person ballot, or turned my mail-in ballot into an in-person ballot, watched them put it into a padlock box. And I'm hoping the guy with the rainbow flag on his lapel doesn't, dump those boxes of votes out.
Yeah.
We'll
hey,
see.
Carla. And thank you, Cheryl. Doing a good job. We got an imposter. Yeah.
We have,
I think California is more red. Well, But so I've been wondering about that since so many of them did relocate. Because I remember when they were coming out in droves with the U-Hauls. But um, y'all know how I feel about the elections. And so what I found interesting was the way it's worded in the amendment, the 12th Amendment, the I guess the original one, and how much they have, um, is it ratified it? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, the states are to ratify the amendment, ideally. Let me know if I'm not coming in loud, by the way. I'm going to change how I'm holding my phone. So if it affects my microphone, I apologize.
Okay. No, you sound good right now. Kingster, good to see you. As long as you be good. All right.
Something to put in your
Excuse
Bonnie. It's not just the stuff going on out here. Tomorrow we get to see both New Jersey, as mentioned in the chat, and
Mm-hmm.
New York. We get to see what's going to happen in New York. That has me curious because I almost think that it will go to whenever that candidate in New York is the fellow that's got everybody worked up because he's Islamist. I actually think New York will flip to him because sometimes it's got to hit bottom
Something like that.
before it's better. Yeah, I think the New Yorkers are suicidal enough. They'll vote in the worst possible guy.
Suicide. Okay. Yeah, New York's going to be a big one, in New Jersey, I think. Uh, uh, there's going to be a lot of big ones. I want to see what happens with Texas. It's
Yeah, Texas has got. You guys got what, a governor race, or do you got different propositions out there?
as far as I know, it's a lot of laws, um, and local. Our mayor is running for judge, and I don't know. It's getting a little weird all over the place.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the voters do their thing and they get wise and acknowledge what the voters want, or they
Yes.
got to do a big scramble and you know obfuscate what the voters want. Way truth out. And that said, I appreciate you, Body, actually going into this particular amendment because, and there's because of this. It's not a caveat. It's because this is the part of the Constitution now. We're at 12th Amendment where things are starting to get a little fuzzy, and you'll see in the material from Grok as well as the material in the amendment itself why things are getting fuzzy and kind of sideways in the country. But also, a lot of people from this point on, a lot of people know the Bill of Rights. That's good.
Yes.
But the amendment came afterwards. Those amendments are still on the books too. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Federal Reserve or the Prohibition or just take your pick. I'm not saying the later ones have any weight to them, but to see how we get from passing the different amendments to when later they don't even pass them properly. We went from caring about how it was done as a country to by the time of the Civil War and onwards, now it's just, a group has a burr up their tail, they got an amendment, and then a few years later, they're going to repeal the amendment because they realized they were wrong in the first place because they ignored all the earlier amendments. So
Yes.
there's something to be said for those first 10 articles of the Bill of Rights being like quintessential, like you don't need any more. But we're going to see this 12th Amendment, they thought they needed it, that they needed to clarify some things. And when we get to my beloved 13th Amendment, we're going to have fun with that one. In fact, I don't know if the suggestion you want to try, but there were supposedly 3 versions of the 13th Amendment. We could do a class on each version and that would make you go, wow, there was almost another 13th Amendment and another and another. So this 12th Amendment is kind of that bridge. This is an amendment that has a lot of the fingerprints of the founding fathers on it, but it doesn't go up into the time period of Lincoln. It's not that this is an amendment you could see the people of that time actually passing with good intentions. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but they didn't mean any harm out of it, or so they would say. Whereas by the time we get to Lincoln, we get to the carpetbaggers and attorneys that we know were notorious for dissembling incorrect info and hiding behind various causes and causing trouble in this country. So it's like a time capsule of an amendment. Does that make sense?
I think so. So I
Yeah.
can't remember, what was the date that they made the two-party system? Do you remember the year?
This came in the wake of that. It was during the election of Jefferson that we had to deal with that, the third president. So what I would ask is, do you want to go ahead and pull up what I put you on Grok, or you can also use just the congressional website. We can move that text, split that up apart. And then I thought Grok's analysis was interesting. That's why I do like to use it. It's not an endorsement by me. It's still left-leaning. No matter what Elon says, it's left-leaning. I've noticed. I saw someone using Grok earlier today, and it went into a total left-leaning tirade about immigration being not being a left thing. It's not that illegal immigrants that are jihadists don't care about the left or the right. It's like, no, but it's always the left that import them. So it is a left issue, whether the left wants to wash their hands of it or not. But that said, I sent you the link for the Grok material. So that's there. If you want, we can always go to like Cornell or whatever and look up the text of it. But Grok provided the text as well. So I'm willing to blow up the screen, read through it with you, pick some of it apart, just with my research and layman's knowledge, and see what your audience thinks as we go along.
That would be great, because I'm using my phone to look at chat, and I don't know why the trolls like to troll Monday nights, but they seem to be getting worse. And
well, it's partly because they don't have a job, so they're off today. They're not winding down; they're winding up.
Yeah.
And Mary Freeland says big day tomorrow. You know what? I hope the Congress, I hope the Senate uses the nuclear option, and with Trump and the GOP senators, all of a sudden, boom, they solve the problem. They came to the rescue. And then what are the Democrats going to say? We made a big to-do and showed how ineffective and ruthless we were.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see that. Now, I know that means a filibuster is at risk, but filibuster is there to stop really bad ideas. Well, bills shouldn't be getting to the floor in the first place. So.
Okay, cool. I'll just let y'all keep dealing with them. Thank y'all very much. Okay, let me go to
out, Cola.
I'm not on X, and I was surprised it let me read it, but
yeah, you should be able to. It's open source.
Do you want me to just go down to the breakdown, or read the...
We can. I prefer to read the whole amendment, and I know you guys are gonna be like, "Oh my God, the whole amendment! It is long." But you see, this is when you're doing like whether it's work in assembly or you're studying the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, or just what the law actually is. You gotta sometimes put in this sweat and grind to read more than one or two sentences, folks. And that's the difference between somebody who's willing to do the work to the folks who are just they're giving lip service to patriotism, but they hope someone else will deal with it. That's right. That's the patriot. You don't need someone else will take care of it. No. Patriots get their hands dirty. They do the sweat. They do the studying. They put in the long hours. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you're going to read so much you forget what you learned. So guess what? You review it too. And that's what we're doing here. We're reviewing an amendment that affects the president and vice president. So I'm going to put my phone into horizontal mode so I can read along with you.
Okay.
And
So this starts out that the 12th Amendment was ratified on June 15th, 1804, modifies the presidential election process outlined in Article 2, Section 1 of the original Constitution. Here is the complete 12th Amendment.
I don't know if you can do screen share.
I can, actually. I think.
Let's
With
see in the
that.
chat. Do you guys want to read along and screen share with us, or do you guys want us to read it to you and just trust that we're reading it correctly? A 1 if you want screen share, or 2 if you trust us. The
I
laughter
think,
was for effect, by the way.
let's see. Well, where'd it go, Sean?
Yeah, Wattlife's here. Welcome, Wattlife.
You what live? And
Donnie, and
there we go.
if I didn't say it, chat. Good to see y'all. Sorry, I'm not typing as much because I'm trying to do more reading of what's on our screen versus the keypad.
And I appreciate you coming up, Sean. I know you're a busy man and that you take the time to help with this.
Yeah, me and D later got to do some talking, if you know what I mean. The good type. And I love Wattlife's comment about cheesecake, brother. I'm right there with you. Back when Sara Lee wasn't using artificial ingredients, I used to eat Sara Lee like it was out of style at least once a month, you know. So Sara Lee cheesecake, that little cherry or strawberries on top, or even their chocolate version they would make once in a while. Yep.
Are you gonna move? Aha, there we go. Okay. So this is the 12th Amendment. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in distinct ballots the person voted for as vice president, and they shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president and of all persons voted for as vice president, and of the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify, and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and all the votes shall be counted. The person
May I?
having yes.
Yeah. As we go through, I'm gonna just put an aside or a comment or an observation. So, did you notice that line? Transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States.
Yes. And
And it says right after that, directed to the president of the Senate.
yes.
Huh. So would the seat of the government of the United States be the vice president?
Well,
Just saying.
that's what they have made it. But to me, it seems like it should be a separate person, but I'm
Agreed.
not the majority.
But do you get what I'm? Have you ever noticed? And this is more of a question for your audience. Anyone ever notice it's always like some CIA guy or some square that is like completely by the book and like, just it's like you don't want that guy as vice president, but they always appoint somebody that seems to be up to more behind the scenes than the actual president is, like a Dick Cheney type,
Yeah.
or more famously, George H.W. Bush during the Reagan era. So just a thought there, folks. I'm not going to create a rabbit hole, but it almost like, when you look at how they structure these things, it looks like almost like a mission of sorts.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it was in 1864 when they started creating running mates, or was that later?
oh, no. That actually came along sooner. We're going to find out when we
Uh,
get further down in this. So, this started creating kind of a shakeup in things.
yes.
So, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead if you want from where we left off.
The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president. But in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states, the representatives from each state having one vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all the states shall be necessary to a choice. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right of choice shall devolve upon them before the 4th day of March next following, then the vice president shall act as president, as in case of death or other constitutional disability of the president. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the vice president. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators, and a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States.
Okay, so
The
that
vice
last sentence,
president has to have the same rules as the president for running for that position.
yeah, let's think about that. Um, that last sentence, I know you're scrolling around and everything, but that last sentence regarding being eligible. Does anyone remember this lady who had a mother from India, I believe, and a father from Jamaica? I
Mm-hmm.
think she ran for office in 2024. I could be mistaken. And she was also a vice president.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know when you're born of Jamaican heritage, Jamaica claims you as a citizen of their country? So
Well,
we had a citizen of another country essentially running for the highest office in the land, was a vice president in line of secession or succession for that seat. And makes me wonder, now we might have a reason as to know why there was no constitutional oath filed for said personality,
hmm.
because they would not be able to swear to it. Their role as a vice president slash POTUS nominee, um, they, they they shouldn't have been vice president in the first place. I'm not the only person who's caught on to this and called this out, by the way.
Well, Was it ever resolved about Obama?
As far as I've seen in my research from Dreams of My Real Father, from Dinesh D'Souza's research, and there's another fellow whose name I'm forgetting. He's done some research on Michelle and on Barack. He basically born in Chicago, uh, but raised in Hawaii and raised in parts of Asia, Indonesia, and Hawaii, and things like that. Basically, he when he said he was a citizen of the world, that was it for me. It's like, okay, you admit that you're basically a UN baby. You don't view the US as your loyalty. You're not America first. You're America somewhere down the line on the food chain. So
I'm
it doesn't matter to me where he's born. He still was raised by Frank Marshall Davis, his grandfather and his mother, and he still had a socialist ideology. So where he was born, by the way, that Kenyan angle was started by the Clinton campaign. So, yeah, he may have Kenyan heritage. Basically, the guy came over, got with his mom, tried to keep the citizenship over here. The marriage didn't work out, went back home. That's not the first time that's happened. We find a lot of people in the Middle East doing that, where they have a wife here in America and a wife back home. So,
yeah.
yeah, that issue with Kenya, yeah, on paper he's a Kenyan as well, but their screw up was that they actually, when they wanted to rub it in Trump's nose during that one dinner with the press corps, and they were trying to mock Trump. Probably when Trump said, "Screw it, I'm definitely gonna take this guy out now." Um, they showed the birth certificate on the screen, and were playing Hulk Hogan's Real America and making a show of it. Not Hulk Hogan, Rick Derringer's, but Hulk Hogan's theme music. Point is you could pause that while it was playing, and you could see like the witness to the live birth was ukulele, which is a stupid guitar you use in Hawaii. It's a stringed instrument, a ukulele.
Yes.
They were literally trolling Trump and the public and thought no one would notice. Oh, that's really his birth certificate. And why does it have a punchline as the name of the witness? So, yeah,
Donald Red Pill.
that president, that president did not realize that the American people are not stupid and asleep.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to go to layman.
There's. I was going to say, Bonnie, there's more in all of that we can get into, such as electors and what electors are and so on. But that's for the purposes of tonight. If we don't break down that portion, we could spend all night on it. So I'd rather, let's go to the breakdown in layman's terms. That's
Okay.
That's something Grok did that I wanted, and it did it pretty well. Go ahead.
Okay. This is Grok's answer. The 12th Amendment was created to fix a big problem from the original Constitution's election rules, which caused chaos in the 1800 election, a tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Back then, electors in the Electoral College voted for two people without saying who was for president or vice president. The top vote getter became president, and the runner-up became vice president. This led to ties and mismatched party tickets, rivals ending up as president and VP. The amendment separates the votes and makes the process clearer and more party-friendly. Here's a simple step-by-step breakdown. So, yes. So, but Lincoln, was it Lincoln and his vice president that were on two opposite parties?
Now, if I remember, it may have been Adams and Jefferson or something like that. But if I may, Bonnie, I actually like the idea of the vice president and president not being the same party, not getting along, so that people actually have to negotiate to create, results versus, people that are all of one mindset just swooping in and running things. You can totally tell with that breakdown by Grok. Grok doesn't say it, but this amendment, it said it was easier for the party system. Of course it was, because Jefferson's election is when the parties started really getting their feet under them, because the printing presses had to be financed by somebody. So the people who financed it, those were the founders of the printing of the political parties. So each party would have like a newspaper dedicated to printing their pamphlets, flyers, whatever, and whoever financed them, organizing voting drives and whatever tricks they had back then.
And
Now
separate
by the
parties
time
so that they could actually sit down and have a discussion about things and come to a solution that's best for the people, not
as
for them.
opposed to getting as opposed to getting the party bosses, because there were party bosses even back then, and
Yeah,
getting them their wallets stuffed with money because they're able to make favors for interests behind the scenes by putting a candidate who will go with their interests and not the voters' interests.
yes,
So, yeah, the founders were prescient to say no to parties, but most Americans, I don't think, can imagine what no parties would look like. It's one of those things that it's ingrained and it shouldn't be. It's like a tick that sucked up too much blood. You got to take that cigarette lighter, do it sooner or later, or a matchstick or whatever you got handy. But
absolutely.
the party bosses back then, I mean, it was kind of not hard to notice. The party bosses usually would have support of local banking interests. Huh? Funny that.
Yeah,
And by the time Andrew Jackson came around, we're talking further into the 1800s. Now you have the parties doing like yellow journalism, talking about Jackson marrying a divorcee and all this stuff. So there's these folks. Uh, Even back then, I don't mind the yellow journalism if there was truth to what they were talking about. Whether it's somebody drinking too much whiskey or doing this or that. But at the same time, if to print more copies of those flyers or those pamphlets or those posters, spreading perhaps lies, and the lies will spread faster than the truth will. So that's
oh,
the issue with the money and the political party dynamic. And so we see it carry over into our own constitutional amendments here.
yes.
Let's see.
Okay.
I believe you're on the breakdown, correct? How electors vote?
Yes. So this, and I find this really interesting the way it's worded. Separate, separate ballots.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So um, electors, people chosen by states to represent voters in the Electoral College, meet in their state and cast two separate votes, one ballot per, whoops, one ballot for president and one for vice president. At least one of the candidates must live in a different state from the elector to prevent a state from dominating. In plain English, no more lumping president and vice president together. It's like ordering two different items on a menu instead of one combo meal. This lets voters, through their electors, pick a ticket or president and VP from the same party.
Now let's go to today. When I vote for a presidential ticket, do I get to vote for the vice president from a separate party?
Nope, they're linked together.
So they have undone this amendment with the way the parties are doing things.
Yep,
See, ladies
magic.
and gentlemen, they had a fix, and then they undid their fix, the modern era. Go ahead, Bonnie.
I just said, imagine that. Okay, sending and counting votes. Electors make separate lists of who got how many votes for each office, sign and seal them, and send them to the U.S. President of the Senate, usually the VP, on a set day. The President of the Senate opens them in front of Congress and counts the votes. In plain English, it's like mailing in your score sheets for a big game and the referee tallies them publicly so everyone can see it's fair. If someone wins a majority, the person with the most votes for president becomes president if they get a majority, more than half of all electors. Same for vice president.
Now, something here, Bonnie, I want to stress. When we talk
Okay.
about chain of custody, we are talking about this very part right here. Those ballots have to be delivered, obviously, and but even like to me, it's like maybe it's just healthy paranoia, or having seen what can go wrong. It's almost like in this part here, we have what's the way I want to phrase it? We have a possibility that stuff could go sideways if people aren't delivering the votes, say in a fast time. And the flip side is, what if they're not counting the votes? What if all the votes aren't delivered? Like there's a holdup and they declare a winner, like they did here in like I said, it's about 5-6 p.m. in California on the Newsom recall. They declared a winner like right after sunset. They didn't even let the vote counting go all through the night. So to me, that's kind of a thing here, is that people want to complain that every vote counts. Well, I kind of see like some windows here, that things could happen. And then the other element we're coming up into, and I don't want to spoil it, but the other element is, what does Congress do, for example, if the elections are contested? And that, again, will tie back to J6. So go ahead and I'll comment as we go through if need be.
Okay. Okay, so if no one gets a majority, the House of Representatives picks the president from the top 3 candidates. Did I already read that? No. Top 3?
Yeah.
When do we get a top 3? Okay. Each state delegation gets 1 vote total, regardless of size, and you need a majority of states, 26 out of 50, to win. A quorum minimum group needs members from 2/3 of the states. It's a backup game where states act like equal players. Big states like California don't get more say than small ones like Wyoming. This happened once in 1824. John Quincy Adams won. If no majority for VPs, Senate steps in. The Senate picks from the top 2 candidates. They need a quorum of 2/3 of senators and a simple majority to decide. The upper house of Congress gets to choose the number 2 spot, like picking a co-captain from the finalists. Interesting.
Yep. Can you kind of see how things go sideways? They could like go on to autopilot and then just start picking leaders they want, which is why the midterms coming up are always important. A lot of people just vote every 4 years and go back in their hole. It's like, no, you need to know who your senators and congressmen are, folks. Especially with as long as senators stay in power, you need to stay on top of them.
Yes,
because go ahead.
Those are the ones that are affecting you personally immediately, is your city, county, and state. So you always want to be on top of that.
Yeah, and something California's trying to do out here, and also in Riverside County specifically, they're trying to put everything into election cycles so that we vote either every 2 or every 4 years, versus we used to have our votes out here in Riverside County on the off year. So it wouldn't line up with all that hubbub. People could actually focus and research in the off year on the local topics. But the Democrats didn't like that because their issues and their initiatives weren't passing, because the conservative base in Riverside was like, nope, we see through you. So they changed it around.
That's good.
Yeah. I like how, by the way, the old deadline clause is now outdated. Like, why do they need to change the date? Go ahead and read that when you're ready, and
Okay.
I'll be snarky afterwards.
If the House couldn't pick a president by March 4th, old Inauguration Day, the Vice President would step in as acting president. This is replaced by modern rules, a safety net to avoid a leaderless country. Think of it as if the coach doesn't show, the assistant takes over. Okay, I don't hear any snarky, so I'll continue.
Well, I'm just letting it kind of sit there. Do you remember all the folks who thought, oh, well, let's just say, you had Vice President Pence and everybody thought he was going to do this or that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the date would be different, but there's potential he could have, he could have done some stuff. I'm not saying what exactly, but let's just say anyone who put hopes on him didn't study him too well to have put those hopes on him in the first place. I saw Pence on J6. I'm like, this guy's going to buckle.
Yes.
It didn't even take me I already knew he was no good while he was in. The only thing he ever did, if you guys followed what Pence did besides lurk in the shadows, he did some good as the governor of Indiana, and he did some good speaking about China's Dragonfly program. Otherwise, he never really did anything. He was one of those vice presidents where, like I said, like George H.W. Bush, you look at him and you're like, we don't really want him, so why is he there?
Mm-hmm.
Which, I might have said too much earlier by pointing out where the seat of power is.
Well, I kind of think thousands of people showed up that day thinking that Pence might cave also.
Yeah, but the question was, who would he cave to? Doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing? And clearly, he took his Judas coin and made off into the sunset. So.
Yep. Okay. Eligibility rule. No one who can't be president, e.g. not a natural born citizen, under 35, or hasn't lived in the United States for 14 years, can be vice president. The VP has to meet the same job requirements as the president so they can fill in if needed without drama.
Do you get the 14 years? The 14 years is how long they've been abroad and basically been a foreigner because they've been out of the country. What were they doing away from the country for so long? Was it business, or were they, maybe working for another government? Maybe they became a citizen of another nation, etc. So they kind of put that in there. And for those who know my dislike of bar attorneys, the suggestion of keeping them out of office, if they've taken that bar oath and they won't ever get involved in public politics, I kind of look at that 14-year period as my go-to. Should we welcome them back into politics, 10 years after they've been out of the bar, 20 years after the bar? 14 to 13 sounds more like what I like. And that's just my bias, but
yeah.
We can comment on that later. But you see, Grok even interprets the VP has to meet the same job requirements as the president so they can fill in if needed without drama. And, Harris clearly did not meet the same requirements as Biden. And Biden, obviously, I guess Harris would just have to have taken more of her brain out, she was obviously too coherent to meet the requirements they needed for their president they wanted.
Oh my gosh, you're giving her a lot of credit. I think she was pretty brainless.
Yeah, but she wasn't a corpse on a stick. She was a giggling alcoholic. There's a slight difference.
Okay.
Even a giggling alcoholic might push the button the right way, the right time. maybe.
So overall, this amendment makes elections smoother by acknowledging political parties, which the founders didn't love but couldn't ignore, and preventing ties or rival vice presidents. It's been used in every presidential election since 1804, but the no majority backups have only kicked in a few times, 1800 and 1824.
There you go. Now, I did ask Brock to give us the relative or relevant Supreme Court cases that relied on it.
Yes.
You'll see that there's actually a fair amount of cases that have developed.
Yep. I see that.
It's not like it was one and done and that was it. So,
So Grok thinks the 12th Amendment doesn't come up in court often because elections usually go smoothly, but when it does, it's usually about state control over electors or election rules. Here are key U.S. Supreme Court cases that directly interpret or rely on it, focused on landmark ones with significant impact. So the first one
all right,
is
go
McPherson.
ahead.
I'm sorry, did you?
Well,
Okay,
I always like the terminology when they say significant impact. May not be significant to whoever programmed Grok, but I guarantee you, whoever was in that election, pretty darn significant to them if they bothered to challenge it.
right.
So,
So the first one was McPherson versus Blackard in 1892. The court upheld Michigan's law letting the state legislature appoint electors directly instead of popular vote. It ruled that the 12th Amendment and Article 2 gives states broad power to decide how electors are chosen, as long as it's not discriminatory. This reinforced federalism in elections. States run the show, not the feds.
would you kindly repeat that again?
The last part?
Yeah.
States run the show, not the feds.
So when it comes to accountability, folks, quit blaming DC. Got to do it locally.
Yes. Next one was Ray versus Blair in 1952. Alabama required presidential electors to pledge to vote for their party's nominees. A candidate refused and sued, claiming it violated the 12th Amendment's implied free agency for electors. The court disagreed 6-2, saying states can require such pledges because the amendment doesn't ban them. It just sets the voting process. This made party discipline enforceable.
Let's repeat that last sentence.
Party discipline? This made
Yeah.
party discipline enforceable.
So you just right there gave parties a lot of power. That's where I think the modern political parties as we know them, like we finally lost the plot to the parties as far as their involvement. Not just the banking issues or the war issues or other issues. When we talk about the voting, when they get a boost like that, okay, this guy doesn't want to vote for the candidate for say you're a Democrat or Republican. Take your pick. Say you're a Republican. The guy running for office, he promised a squeaky clean image, but he's always drunk and boozing with the women on a Saturday night. And though the party is pushing him, you're like, I just can't do it. We promote a pro-life family platform. I'm going to have to vote against him, even though I'm an elector. This is saying, no, you can't do it because you got to vote with what the party tells you to vote for. And it's like, why even show up? Just have the party send in their paperwork and say, we support this guy. So you see that is it's not just a stifling of conscience; it's a stifling of free speech, and a lot of other issues are packed into that. And if you remember, 1952, we had Ike Eisenhower as president, but in the background, we had one Richard Milhouse Nixon, and we also had the Kennedys were coming up on the rise as well, and a bunch of other folks in these different orbits, which gave rise to eventually the issues in the '60s. And so it's kind of like you can see the stage being set. I don't know if that makes sense, folks, but the '40s through the '50s are another time period politically. You want to research them or what was going on, because we were
Yeah.
doing the Marshall Plan in Europe, and it seems we were more caring about the corruption in Europe and making their elections uh, run correctly than we were our own. So
Imagine that. Other countries always come first.
yeah, I wonder who's Paul. Oh, that's right, the Marshall Plan, when all the bankers said we had to rebuild Europe after Europe tore itself apart because of the bankers.
Hmm.
So yeah, and we still haven't gotten that money paid back. Just saying, folks.
Okay, so
Let's
the
go on to.
next
Go ahead.
was Williams versus Rhodes in 1968. Ohio's ballot access laws favored the two major parties, blocking the American Independent Party. Challengers argued it violated equal protection and the 12th Amendment's election process. The court struck down the laws 6-3, saying states can't unduly burden new parties or voters' rights under the 12th Amendment and 14th Amendment. Elections must be fair and accessible.
Okay, so that Bonnie is a little ray of sunshine for us, a silver lining. The courts actually were siding with the third parties, with folks outside the usual machine. So just if you guys ever happen to have an issue and say you are someone trying to get a third party candidate some leverage, you might want to look into that case. And let's look at the numbers. The court struck it down 6-3. So it's pretty obvious the courts back then were ruling with the Constitution. It wasn't these 50-50 votes of 5-6 or excuse me 4-5. This was pretty much double the majority on one side. So
Right.
that was something cut and dry. And that's been the issue. The independents, the different parties, be they today libertarian, green, whatever Constitution Party, whatever they call themselves, they're on the ballots now. In California, we got them all on the ballots, for example. But as far as getting on the debate stage or getting coverage or press, they're not getting as much of it. There's a few states like New Hampshire and Nevada where libertarians and other independents fare well, but that's usually because those people are either self-financed or they are using monies from somewhere. And I'll let you figure out that element. In fact,
Yeah.
that'll be a discussion later on. I'm gonna bring up. If you don't mind, Bonnie, I'm willing to go to the next one because I find the time frame interesting and
Yeah.
relevant to our era.
Yep. The next two.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Colorado Department of State versus Baca, 2020. A faithless elector who voted against his pledge challenged Colorado's penalty for not following the state's popular vote winner. The court unanimously ruled the 12th Amendment doesn't protect electors' free choice. States can enforce votes for the winner via fines or removal. This upheld the winner-take-all system in most states. So that's one of the concerns I've had with the Electoral College is that they are picking who they want without really looking at the numbers.
Well, that's one of the things is that that popular vote too, especially that popular vote's been misreported or stacked because of
Hmm.
various cheating methods at the polls or at the drop boxes or wherever. Um, like when people argue to get rid of the electoral college, I do kind of side with that because sometimes you do have a populist who wins bigly and they're prevented because the electoral college screws with them, just like the delegates in the political parties screw with them. Uh, Good case would be the Bernie and Hillary situation. Now, I'm not a Bernie bro, but at the time Bernie was running the first time when he had to cede to Hillary, I'm over on the Rand Paul side of things, and Rand Paul dips out early, kind of gives the nod to Trump. And I'm like, okay, cool. I wanted to see Bernie and Trump debate. That would have been the perfect set the tone for the country for 50 years, maybe longer, because capitalism will always, destroy socialism in a head-to-head argument. And I'm apologizing to anyone who may be a socialist watching this broadcast. Your philosophy and your way of doing business is not good. Sorry, get
No.
over it. Now,
And this,
they screwed Bernie, as you're aware, and heck, that even got one of the disaffected Bernie bros to go give WikiLeaks that thumb drive. So,
hmm
aside from the history, these electoral colleges, it's almost like the rulings keep making it almost like they want to get rid of that electoral college, then go back to mob rule of straight democracies. And if you look into who the Supreme Court in the modern era, who their masters are and who they serve, they're a lot different than the Constitution following Supreme Courts we had, in the first half of the 20th century. Technically, we're in the 21st century now, so I gotta even watch my grammar. Speaking of that, I sound so last century. Oh my gosh. But I'm interested now in this Chia Follow versus Washington.
thank you for
That was,
saying that name because I was like, I am so going to mess that name up. Chia Follow.
yeah, Chia Follow or Kia Follow. I don't. I see it. And I think Chia Pet, but anyway,
Right.
I'm sure that
Okay.
person got a lot of hell in school.
And that was also in 2020. Similar to
Mhm.
Baca, Washington fined electors who broke pledges. The court, 9-0, held that the 12th Amendment lets states bind electors to the popular vote, citing history in the amendment's text. This ended debates over rogue electors and ensured votes reflect the people's choice.
Now, if I may, the rogue electors was a red herring created by the Democrats because people knew who really won the popular vote. Once you take all the stuff, so people wanted to rule with their gut and what they knew. You saw everyone's street signs, who they supported, versus these people saying that somebody magically won more voters than even Barack Obama did. And by the way, the next cycle, those voters all disappeared in 2024, never showed up to vote again. Funny how that works.
hmm It
So the
it's
rogue elector, yeah, that's Grok's bias and left wing sources kicking in there. Go ahead, Bonnie. Sorry.
it's surprising to me that um, Arizona is not up here because they're the ones that did the audits, and I would have thought that that would have gone to court.
That's still working itself out. I think Carrie Lake still has some cases pending.
Oh,
So
okay.
unless Trump gave her a job doing something, because I know there's that too.
So at the end, Grok says these cases show the 12th Amendment's focus on state flexibility while protecting fair elections. No major cases have overturned its core mechanics, but they've adapted it to modern voting rights. If you want deep dives, oh, okay, that's to you.
Yeah, modern voting rights, where they got to vote, but the voters aren't supposed to be voting because they're not Americans. So yeah, I'm not interested in modern voting rights. I'm in constitutional voting rights or
Excuse.
American voting rights, whatever. So yeah, little slips by Grok tell me his programmers haven't changed their ways. They just want the conservative money. So I don't know if let's see here. Yeah, I'm just taking a look at the comments real quick, see if anyone has any questions or comments. Yeah,
Looks like
Anarchy Television had some good commentary 20 minutes ago.
he always does. Wingnuts.
And then Watts posting the historical beats, so I appreciate that. You know, it gives us some information that comes in here. Let's see here. William Howard Taft. I'm trying to remember if that was the guy who couldn't get out of his bathtub. Phil R asked, "What does the bar mean?" British Accredited Registry. Basically, you have a bar number, and that's where your law firm is listed under the Crown Corporation to do business.
Hey, Lauren.
You also pass the bar. It's a region in the city of London proper, within London. You basically the bar is how the attorneys get into the peerage system. They can get land rights, among other. So for those who are listening or wondering, when these people swear to the Constitution, they know they're swearing to the corporate Constitution, and that feeds up to the Crown. And then in Canada, they openly swear to support the King or the Queen and their rightful heirs. So they actually say it by name in Canada. So you're taking an oath that you're going to serve the Crown, which means you can't have two masters. Who are you going to serve? Your nation or a bloodline of child abusing people in pompous dresses and crowns? You know.
Yeah. No.
I have a cape. I deserve to call the shots with my terracotta and what global warming and climate change should do. You know, I'm not even talking correctly. I so despise King Charles. But,
Is
kind of.
Is he doing okay?
Go ahead.
I thought I had heard he was not doing well. King Charles.
I hope he wasn't doing anything at all. But as you saw, Trump went and visited him, and then the carriage for Trump was in front of his, and it was the royal carriage. So Trump was basically leading the way in the king's carriage, and Charles was playing second fiddle. I do like Bruce's point. 7:06 p.m. Bruce said, without the electoral college, we would have more votes from the populated states. New York, California, that'd be correct. We would. That's why it would be on the people to move the heck out of those states to, help leverage that out. But, unfortunately, New York and California import a lot of people and then count them as voters when they're not supposed to.
Right. So do you really think it's a good idea for Trump to be leading in these other countries?
Given that we are kind of doing let's put it this way, if they take our dollar bill, then they better be listening to us. If they want to get rid of our currency, then good luck. Because that's really that's our number one export, is the dollar bill. That little paper bill that we print trillions of from the Federal Reserve. You can stack it so high it can go to the moon and back. Those little pieces of paper, that's our number one product, folks. Number two product would be our military. And then number three, well, our scrap iron isn't even up there anymore because nobody's doing manufacturing because of, the climate nonsense. So, we used to have scrap metal as our number one export because the American nation used to have steel as a real thing. We would actually produce and smelt steel, some of the finest metal on the planet. You had British steel, you had American steel. People used to take pride in their manufacturing. And now, manufacturing is bad. We don't want to have Motor City Detroit. It's kind of funny because I know that the big auto industry polluted Flint, Michigan, they polluted Detroit and all that, but back then when the money was flowing, seemed the pollution wasn't a problem. Like maybe people could afford water filters or move to areas that didn't have polluted water. I'm just kind of saying, when you shut down the factories and no one has jobs, then yeah, maybe the craziness comes out a little bit more, you know?
Right. York, I knew I smelt you. I'm just playing with you. Love you, York.
Yeah. Isn't the term smelt for when it's something you forge in a, there's welding, there's smelt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure smelt is a old archaic term
Yes,
for
forgy.
stuff that is made like,
Yep.
yeah. That's the problem. Sometimes my vocabulary is so big that I think words mean what like they say in The Princess Bride. Word doesn't mean what I think you think it means. Uh, yeah, and so I am guilty of that. Although I do know what inconceivable means in context. Inconceivable. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is something to be said for an amendment that, to me, it looks like they just started, rolling over for the political parties that at that time. It's the time capsule. They're like, yeah, if we have a tie or this or that, but you know what? Let's make it where the people have to vote what the electors say or the parties say, and that's where that term where that you notice there was pledge, because you would pledge to vote what the parties wanted you to vote for. Yeah. Or you would vote the popular vote, knowing full well your area is full of lunkheaded people of whichever party. You're like, if I vote for this guy, I'm going to screw up the country. I need to vote my conscience and vote against my community because my community's full of morons. So sometimes the electoral college was a good balance, but they're trying to make things mob rule and slowly chip away at things like the electoral college. But in this amendment, we see the electoral college. I don't want to say get reinforced, but at the same time, I don't want to say like it's not totally a. It's like one of those things you can see both sides of the argument on, you know. And plain and simply, if we had stayed with what the founders wanted, no political parties, just hey, put the guy's name, like Jesse Ventura once said, put the guy's name on the ballot, and no party listing, so people can't run down the ballot up and down and just pick all, of one party. They
Yeah.
actually have to research who they're voting for and what the person stands for, what they believe.
Yeah, but I don't like that.
But
And
do you want
I
to be an
want
informed voter or just go through the machine?
no, I want to vote for the person that I think is best for the position. And I don't look at what party they are. It's That's
Correct.
the way we used to do it. Now you
But
have
they
to,
have
it's kind of set up where you have to go straight ticket.
yeah, and the straight ticket, if that means that like if you guys saw the speech by that knucklehead Fine earlier today saying Tucker Carlson is, this big anti-Semite and all that. I'm looking at this Fine character. It's like, how did this guy even get voted into office? He can't even fit in his chair. Like,
Yes.
aren't you worried he's going to have a heart attack and die? I see if I was in his district and I did research on him, I'd be like, does this guy have a history of diabetes or something? Because I don't want to, vote for someone and then the spouse or whoever has to take over their seat. And how do I want to put it? I'll vote for someone who winds up dead. No, I'm not going to vote for that dude. It's not that I'm, against people being heavy. Trust me, I like my cheesecake, as I was referencing Watt Life earlier. But you know what? I'm only 60 pounds overweight, according to Marine Corps math. This dude is like several Marines overweight. So, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Fine would be an easy target for my fat jokes, but I just don't have enough to make up for him. And
Well, you would have someone physically and mentally fit for the position.
well, and that's the other thing. Some of these guys on this in this Congress, these ones who are the never Trumpers, it's like Trump was expecting party loyalty, like they would pledge, like those electors are supposed to pledge to stick by the party line, but they don't. They stick their finger up, see which way the wind's blowing because they're politicians, and they want to enhance themselves. So instead of doing the right thing by the Constitution and their constituents, they will oppose Trump because they can agree with the talking points of the opposition, which it's like all the opposition talking points are unfounded.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm just taking a look at the comments. I'm like a minute behind, folks. So don't worry, we'll catch up to you if you got something in there. Uh, I'm actually wondering though, does anyone have any questions on this? Because the mechanics to this, like having two separate ballots, could you guys imagine having your ballots again have more pages where there's a president on one page and a vice president on a different page?
Yeah.
Or them be, could you imagine voting a Democrat and a Republican into the two top offices so they're like at loggerheads? To me, that would be great. And yeah, that's a really good party. Hey, I've voted third party a couple times. I'm just saying, voted Gary Johnson in 2012 because I didn't like Mitt and I didn't like Barack, and I especially don't like Mitt. I have my reasons. Disappearing off the campaign trail for the last month of the election cycle, that's kind of a stupid move to do. That's how you know someone's a ringer. Craig the Hunter has questions. Do we have answers? Maybe.
Pat just asked, what if you don't agree with either party?
Yeah, I will vote third party. Here's the thing: if they're in either party, they still take that same oath of office, regardless of which of the positions they take: congressman, senator, president. So they can, that oath can be honored. I mean, bare minimum, they won't like being reminded about it because it tells them there's a spotlight on them. But reaching out and addressing them properly. Bonnie already knows where I'm going to go with that answer, and some of you guys might know as well. So, you want to go that route and learn actually how to interface with those levers of power. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to learn.
Yeah. The separate ballots and having 2 or 3 to pick from. That sounds cool to me. I can see where it might cause, because back when the Constitution was written, the population wasn't as huge as it is now, but we should have, I know when I walk into a poll office, there's at least 5 people working it. So they should be able to count the ballots pretty quick.
Agreed.
So it is
and
one day.
We have we have computers now. We have automobiles. We have fax machines and telephones and wireless connections. Somehow it's taking longer now to count ballots than it did back when they were paper in the 80s, in early 90s.
Yes.
So they're creating more excuses rather than streamlining. That's how you also know when there's a fix, is when people are acting inept. It's not ineptitude, as many people point out. It's deliberate. They're playing inept so they can go in front of someone and say, "Gee, Your Honor, I didn't know." No, your job requires you to know that actually you're up for criminal nonfeasance now because you didn't bother to research your job and know what your role is. So, to paraphrase someone I'm not a fan of, you need to know your role and shut your mouth and do the job. That's you add the third part in.
Yeah. I don't know. If there's another election, I think it's going to be pretty interesting for president.
Yeah, I see Wildlife is referencing Ross Perot. There's a guy there I wanted to win, but the Bushies were threatening his daughters, so he took a break from campaigning, and people basically viewed Ross Perot as not being diehard. But back then, when people threatened your daughters, you didn't really have the internet to go and tell everyone, "Hey, they just made a threat on so-and-so's life. We need to protect them." That was something I would say, has changed when the Bundys were being threatened. You saw the patriots of the country surround the Bundy Ranch, and Sheriff Lombardo showed up and told Barack's BLM, funny choice of initials, told them to go home, and they did. So that's, that was a great day for America. They learned from that. That's why, Smith's Modernization Act and a lot of other things were being put in use, because they don't want the Americans to be able to organize like that again. We should be able to organize like that. We should be able to show up. We should be able to be educated on this. We should be able to make these elections flow smoother. So one thing they're going to do, I hope you guys are paying attention to this, they're going to try to trick everyone into those. Yes, you should have ID to vote. Should you have an ID that tracks you? No. You see how they're going to try to do the real ID gimmick? I guarantee you, Bonnie, that's going to be their answer. They're going to say, hey, you want to vote, you have to have a real ID with a tracker chip.
And so then we get into the real ID, digital ID system that I'm just not participating.
Yeah, I've always looked at it in the sense of, you know what, you get a passport, it lasts you forever, and they don't question a passport. So get yourself a passport, folks. There's ways to do that too.
Yes. Yes, your
And,
phone
and don't
ready.
I was gonna say, don't expatriate yourself in the process. Get the actual passport, or get the secondary American national passport. Don't go down that rabbit hole too far. You'll wind up with your citizenship pulled from you, and you're gonna be going, "What happened?" Like, bro, just cool your jets. I know we don't like this system, but you got to be able to sometimes clock in and clock out of that system, like Neo in the Matrix. Sometimes you go in, just don't stay in.
So get an American passport.
Yeah, you can sign off as an American national. If you sign off as a state national, you're in a different issue, and you done screwed yourself.
Yes.
And that's another class for another day. Yeah, Pat's correct. Our phone does track us, but you know what? You don't have to bring your phone with you to the voting booth. You can leave your phone out in the car or at home. See, that's one thing. People take their phones with them. If I go to walk a dog or go down the mall on my day off of work, I don't take my phone with me. I leave it here. Sometimes people are surprised they miss a call from me. Yeah, because guess what? I'm not married to my phone.
So did you say an American national?
Yeah, the term I used was American national, but it's still under the corporation. So national was a term created in the Civil War era and afterwards.
But they still get upset when I put in that other box, American. So
Yeah. Well, of course they do. They call us filthy American. They don't want you to be an American. They want you to be a citizen. They want you to be a subject. They want you to be uneducated. I want my constitutional rights. What did we read in that 12th Amendment, folks? Just to make a point, what do we read in that 12th Amendment? Did it talk about individuals at all? No, it's talking about what the electors have to do, what the Senate has to do, what those people in those offices have to do. It didn't really talk about what the voters do or don't do. You get it? Those amendments are for that government to tell it what toes it can or cannot step on. And ideally, it should be stepping on any toes. A lot of love in the chat tonight, by the way. Good to see you guys all supporting each other and everything. Bruce said we needed to do away with all voter rolls and start over just to be sure. That wouldn't be a bad idea, but would the different states and counties put up with that? It's just like the redistricting move here in California. Newsom's trying to shake things up because he wants to redistrict more Democrat areas because, the state's grown population-wise. Actually, no, Gavin, we have lost population. Everyone's fleeing the state, and immigration's slowing down here because people realize that we are, not doing well as an economy anymore. But do we have more people coming here to live off the dole and live for free? Of course we do. So, that's kind of the thing, is you can't have more people taking than there are giving. And so when all the givers move out of state, because this state had the great idea of, oh, if you leave the state, we're going to try to tax you on your way out. Yeah, that's not a way to make people want to stick around any longer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I don't need their
the,
veto.
the Democrats out here are suicidally insane. So that's fine. Let them get what they want. Let them get what they vote for. Folks like me will be here holding down the fort. And when it's all said and done, we'll rebuild on their ashes, because they are going to burn themselves down. They're the ones who think that, oh, gee, what in the name of nature, we won't, take all the dry, kindling out of the forest like we used to. And we'll build homes in areas that are fire prone. Oh, you mean like where the Native Americans used to watch the fires that would occur every 20 years?
Yeah. What happened to y'all's land management?
Democrats happened. This didn't happen under Arnold. I don't even like Arnold, but at least he was responsible about the land. And same
Yeah.
for before Governor Davis, and also Governor even Pete Wilson, who I'm not a fan of. All three of those governors took care of the state to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what
Yeah,
is
Watt
that?
like was pointing out, there's an oil company that got a stock offering, and with initial 1.7 trillion with a T for an initial public offering for their stock market price. Yeah, 1 trillion, guys, that's one business. So when we're 38 trillion in debt, that's like worth 38 mega corporations in debt. I wonder who owns all that debt and who signed up for all that debt. Just a thought. Yep. Watt's putting the definition down for us. Thank you, my friend.
Yep. Thank you, Watt.
So, 12th Amendment. What do you think, Bonnie? Do you think that's something we should do away with, or should we keep it as is? Or
Well, if we would have stuck to it, maybe. I mean, I think that there needs to be stipulations, like Bruce said earlier, the paper ballots, not the machines, ID, and that's where we have it too. Is we have to have a voter's registration card along with our ID.
yeah,
Excuse me.
that could work like a party registration thing too, or whatever. Like, I mean, we sign up for these parties, and what do we get for it? We get all these emails and stuff. The least they could do is give us something back.
So y'all don't get a voter registration card each year, or
Oh,
each?
no. We get told we're notified, then we get the sample ballots and this and that. But they also send us the form to if we need to change our address or sign up to vote again or whatever, or register for different parties. They send us that stuff. But the actual card we carry with us, no. California, it's just your driver's license or DMV ID or your passport. And that's the funny part, is they give out driver's licenses at the DMV, but they also give you your voter registration packet there, which means if you're somebody who doesn't know nothing and you got a guy who's your handler, yeah, bro, fill this out. We'll get you your license, and I'll fill this out for you, pointing at the election packet. And guess what? Now you got yourself a guy who shouldn't be voting that is voting, because his handler, and they have them, will be taking care of all those ballots as they send them to the communal, apartment or whatever they're in. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now there's a lot of dirty shadiness. If I had hours of my own podcast, I mean, I wouldn't have enough. I've been aware of the dirty voting stuff going on since the 90s, since I was a teenager. Imagine if I had the inclination to document all of it further. Like I was, I was watching the Hanging Chads thing like it was a freaking sporting event when it was Bush versus Gore. I was tuning into that every day on the news, watching the early Prison Planet and Infowars.com coverage of that. So there was, because heck, I was in the Marine Reserves, so once a month, whatever I'm going to do down there at Miramar was going to depend on who the commander in chief was. Because if it went towards Bush, we knew Iraq was going to happen again. And there were GOP assets at Miramar who were working at campaign events and were promising, yeah, we're going to go back to Iraq and finish the job, this, that, and the other. I'm like, we don't need to go back to Iraq. So Ross Perot was looking like a good option at the time. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So,
Well, this is, it looks like it's from the Secretary of State's office, but then the voter registrar, and it has everything about you on it. like your voter ID number, gender, then it has your precinct number, and that's how you know where to go to vote. It has expiration date. It is annually that they send these, and maybe it's connected to the taxes because it has these little boxes, and it's your U.S. rep, state rep, or maybe it's Senate. I don't know. STREP. Strep. No. State representatives.
or
Senate. Yes, I see now. And what's COMM? Commissioner. JP. And then it has city, school, library, fire, ESD. So, but, yep, we have to carry this with us. It's got a little pocket in my purse that it stays in. And,
that sounds useful to have.
I think it is because, it's another form of ID, I would think, if you didn't have your other one and somebody asked. Maybe.
Fair. Now, here's a thought, though, folks. This is very realistic. If this initiative here in California passes for the redistricting of California, so they can flood Congress with more congressmen in the midterms, and I have a feeling they will try. There's two options that could happen here. All of California could wake the hell up and just turn on the Democrats and vote all kinds of Republicans in, or all the Republican representation doesn't show up because they've rigged the districts, and so all these blue congressmen come in to flood Congress, which means, Bonnie, in your area in Texas, all the Texans need to turn out and vote GOP, and all the other states in the union need to turn out, because the numbers of California, it's not something I like to admit to, but we are the most populous state.
Mm-hmm.
New York will say they are, and other states will lay claim. They don't have the migrant population for the false voting that we do. So the migrants will turn out their cousins and their, friends living in the garage, and the guys that they just smuggled in, whoever. And, the folks who've been staying here for 10 or 20 generations that are legitimate, they're all going to turn out. And there's reasons for that. Go read some Mecha and La Raza material if you don't believe me. Mm-hmm. And they're intending to, undo this republic. So these midterms, it's like every election is supposed to be the most important ever. Well, if this initiative in California passes, I think that's what everyone's waiting on, is to see what happens. Like, once this week is over, they'll know whether or not they can adjust their battle plans for 2028. And if this initiative does pass, we can't have one conservative or even center right person stay home, or even center left like a Tulsi Gabbard or an RFK Jr. We need to get everybody uh, mobilized for 2028, and that's again in the de facto. In the assembly, you still that's the thing, folks. In life, you got to juggle several plates. That's what's called adulting. So in the de facto, people got to show up and vote, and in their personal de jure world, in the world of we the people, you got to start putting your groups together, because guess what? You can audit midterm elections too, folks. You don't have to wait till there's a presidential election to worry about voter fraud. Go look up True the Vote. Yeah, they need a little bit of fundraising like they always do, but they have a track record in elections they've been following going back over 15 years. Look up Bev Harris and Fraction Magic. I know she's under a gag order, so she can't talk about that stuff anymore. But you could go find that documentary, and that was from I want to say somewhere between 2008 and 2014. And she was showing the algorithm that they were flipping. They could flip votes with in the close races. But we got to get everybody through the finish line this time. I know some of you don't like it because, oh God, the two parties are the same. The two parties are not the same because at least one of the parties allows you a little bit of breathing room and at least pretend to give you lip service. So they may not be doing much, but at least they try to make the facade of, hey, we're trying. Hey, you elected us, thank you. Now, if you're looking at it as far as the nation being a corporation, which it is, do you want your corporation ran by people who have no idea what they're doing, or do you want your corporation ran by people who've been in business and people who've at least got some comprehension of what a constitution is? At least the ship of state, as they call it, at least it gets through the choppy waters rather than being wrecked on the beach. So I'm just putting it out there. If you feel like you're going to be uninvolved during these cycles, I don't know why you'd want to be uninvolved. Not being involved is a choice, and it's usually a choice that gets you. You can open up your hands and see what your apathy gets you, because whatever you get is in your hands. I'll leave it at that.
Good night, Craig. Thank you for coming in. It's interesting. I just looked up California's composition, and it's predominantly white. Where
imagine that.
But Texas is not. We're predominantly Mexican, Hispanic.
Well,
what I'm supposed to say.
There's a trick they've done here in California that they're not telling everyone. So I don't know if you're ready to hear it yet or not, but when the FBI does this as a trick they do with crime statistics. Are you ready for this? So they will report Hispanic crime as white crime. And that's how they were able to say that there was a rise in white on black crime. The gang warfare between Hispanic gangs and black gangs, they were attributing that to white people. And then they would say, yeah, it was white racial crimes, because Latinos are notorious in their gangs for calling black people various slurs. So all those civil rights lobbyists were able to paintbrush Caucasian, European descent Americans as being the same as MS-13 or, who's another good example? Out here we have the Casablanca gang, we have in Corona the CVLs, you have different street gangs in LA, that claim just different street names. And these were Hispanic gangs, and a lot of them have married into the Crips and Bloods, so that plays in too. But that's one thing that these pollsters have been doing, is they've been and these FBI crime statistician to create an illusion that white crime increased. They married Hispanic crime into white crime. And in fact, if you fill out surveys, you will often have to, the survey will ask, are you of Hispanic heritage? And then it'll say, no, not Hispanic heritage, or white Hispanic. And then it'll have other breakdowns like, Brazilian, Argentinian, Mexican, Guatemalan, whatever. So they are, instead of just saying, what used to be considered a separate ethnic group, by slamming the two together, they were able to fudge the numbers. So in Texas, because Texas doesn't keep their numbers with that trick, because the trick that liberals came up with, Texas is actually reporting that yes, you guys do have a majority demographic of Hispanic. Here's the scary part: California, yes, the majority demographic is Hispanic out here. In high school students alone, 46% of high school students in Riverside County are Hispanic. 26% are Caucasian, 13% are African American, and the remaining is split up between Pacific Islander and Middle Easterner. And Asian. That's the other term they call it. So if I'm looking at high school students, well, those high school students come from parents. You can assume that they're in families of like ethnicity. So break it down again. 46%, nearly half in Riverside County, are Hispanic. 26% are Caucasian, 13% African American, and then you have your other groups making up the diverse blend that fills in the gaps. So you see how that works, Bonnie?
Mm-hmm.
So they're able to lie to the public because the public doesn't know and doesn't do the research. I had to do the demographic research because, when I was doing my lucha libre and my wrestling thing, I was trying to get shows booked. So I had to know which counties and which businesses and things were in which neighborhoods and which demographics. Because when you're doing lucha libre, you target the Latino neighborhoods and Latino events and communities. And when you're doing pro wrestling, you go for the Caucasian and European descent communities and neighborhoods. Sometimes you also get bleed over, like at church, like Calvary Christian churches out here are very popular with a Hispanic and Caucasian community. So, hey, that event in Orange County we did years back, that was a Halloween show for families where we were all dressed up as characters in Alice in Wonderland. Guess what? We had white people and Latino people in our audience. Go us. But, you wouldn't know that stuff if you didn't research demographics and look up the information and then compare it with what the, people in the news are reporting. It's like the news is totally sideways from the on-the-ground demographics.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I try to explain is there's been such a always mixture. But there is a book out there called Texas. If you ever get a chance, might run through it. And it describes a plan, but it's not a plan like all the other plans I've heard for the past 6 years. It's my grandmother made me read it. It's how Mexico is going to take Texas back over.
Yeah, I'm aware of their idea of a reconquista.
Yes. But now the way the world is going, I don't think that's a concern still. I've never been worried about it. I don't know. We all seem to get along here.
Texas could be a really good shining example of how a state could be ran right if you didn't have Abbott. No pun intended with him being in a wheelchair, but if Abbott wasn't pussyfooting with the Democrats behind the scenes, then
Yes.
you guys could have a really awesome state. But for some reason, Abbott is still a Bushy. He's still a neocon. So he's still going half measures.
Yes.
Every Texan should have been embarrassed when he said he had to ask the Biden administration for permission to turn on the heat in his state. Because, oh my gosh, the federal government, EPA, might sue the state of Texas. So what? Texas has enough oil. They could outfund any lawsuit.
Yes,
But
and we've got a bunch of lawsuits. Well, they didn't show up on the registry, but I, I've seen that there's lawsuits against Texas. I know we had one for the buoys that were put in the Rio Grande, and then I know that there were some others also. Ken Paxton was working on those. But
yeah,
yes, when
Paxton
I
would be.
called,
I like him.
I do too. I like him. Um, I heard that he and Chip Roy were going to swap places. I don't know why they would do that. I think it's fine the way it is, but we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, they might have a plan, but it's their plan, and I don't trust it because I don't know what it is. So,
Right.
and anyone telling you that there's a plan to trust it, they better be able to vet what the steps of that plan are. When I refer people to the 10 steps, it's the same 10 steps I've been looking at for the last 5 years. Doesn't change.
Yes.
So, you know,
But yeah, when I called up there about the border, um, I was told our hands are tied. It's a federal issue. And I was like, well, wait, why do we have a National Guard? Each state has their own National Guard. So the state should be able to call the National Guard up if needed, correct?
now that's something too that, again, separation of powers. When these states have brush fires, you can call the National Guard in to help with that. Or when these states have riots, you can call in the National Guard. That's as governor. And
Yes,
that's what Trump was saying is he had to basically he had to mobilize the National Guard because the governors of the different states were refusing to do their due diligence, to do their oath of office, to do their duty to actually engage the National Guard and put them in positions to protect federal assets and protect federal employees. So
but
that's
so,
what these governors have been doing is stand downs. They create open targets and then tell their goons to go cause trouble and destroy the target.
well, and then that's when Abbott created Operation Lone Star, which turned our Department of Public Safety. Okay, our Department of Public Safety took over the Texas Rangers, but then when he started Operation Lone Star, he used the Department of Public Safety for that. It was a he's really confusing me with our people. I want the Texas Rangers back because that's who we called if we felt there was any kind of nefarious things going on with our law enforcement. And they would come and investigate and take care of it. Nobody wanted the Texas Rangers coming because they didn't mess around.
Well, that's the reason that know
Mm-mm.
the Rangers are the federal marshals of Texas. That they're like the honey badgers of Rangers or of marshals. So
Yes.
I I'm a very much a fan of them being used in the proper context. But the worst crime of these other states, other guys, they don't use anything, and then they cry they don't have the resources. Like you have the resources, you just chose to have them go out and host story events, to put it politely, at libraries for children, or you decided to have a dog and pony show, for a parade, but not deploy them, where they were needed during the aforementioned riots and protests during the Summer of Love.
Well, we didn't have as much problem as the West Coast with that,
Correct.
I don't think.
Well, that's partly because the West Coast wants to, not as an individual, but the West Coast, the powers that be out here, want to have their own little fiefdoms, and they don't want They honestly want to be like they're running separate from the rest of the United States, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That feeds into the whole, again, collapse the Southwest back into Mexico for their plans. And what the Mexican people who promote that don't get is they're not going to be part of the plan. They're just going to be useful idiots. After that, they're expendable.
Yes.
So that's the sad truth of it.
Well, the one thing I saw the Operation Lone Star do that I can commend them on is there's an island down at the very south tip of Texas, and it was completely run by bad people. And they went in and eliminated all that. And there was a whole lot that was going through there of people not wanting to go through there, drugs, weapons, all kinds of bad stuff. Hey, Jerry.
Well, something to think about, and I just touched on this with the ABAR funding that was cut. The people that are running and trafficking the substances of abuse and choice, if they didn't have customers, they wouldn't be able to sell that stuff. But on top of that, if there was no money in it for them, or if the price was so prohibitive, that you'd have to be the top tier of operators to actually import it.
Yes.
That would get a lot of people out of that gang. Think of it as, the hand of the marketplace. Now, the issue at hand is that it's governments trying to decide that marketplace. So that's where the American people need to actually, on their own, wake up and say, hey, we're refusing to put these chemicals into our people. And by that, I mean, each addict that's out there has got to snap out of it, get themselves cleaned up. And people going down that road, they need to be dealt with somehow. But like any other product, those narcos, they're only selling it to us because we're buying it. We weren't
Yes.
buying it. We go find customers elsewhere, like in the Middle East or in Asia or Europe, more than likely, lest we forget Marcon, whatever the hell his name is, on the choo-choo train with a little bit of choo-choo. Oh yeah, he's just gonna hide the spoon. Yeah, we saw that. So for some reason, America, maybe it's because of our success, we are the biggest market for all these vices, and that's something we need to think about. Is we need to change our people's spirituality and bearing. We won't need those substances to get through our day. I say this as someone who drinks a lot of caffeine, so I'm not coming at it like I'm a saint. There's days where I don't drink energy drinks and sodas and all that, and I can be functional. But how do I put this? The only time I felt the same type of focus and functionality that I do with caffeine is like when I was doing the wrestling, or when I was doing training or running or hitting weights and stuff. Like, people call it the natural high, and yes, you actually do get that.
Yes.
When you're living a healthy, clean lifestyle and a spiritually driven lifestyle, nature gives you its own high, its own endorphins, from your adrenaline and everything. So there's no need to wake yourself up in the morning when you have that routine. Now, if you don't have a routine, like I'm in the boat right now where I'm working different shifts throughout the week, yeah. So it's kind of obvious, Bonnie, you've heard me when I'm wide awake and I'm not dragging, and I'm on my usual night shift. I'm right there with you and D, and I can converse, note for note. Today, I woke up a little bit early, make sure to go get that ballot dropped off, and get some other things into play. So, like, when this wraps up tonight, I'm probably, because I got some studying I got to do, I'm probably going to crack open an energy drink and stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning my time, just to make sure that I got the material down, because people rely on me to give them factual information, you know, and
Well,
sometimes you have to have a clear head when you're reading through a musty PDF or document of something that's really old. And yes, Pat Evans, thank you. November 10th, 1775, Tun Tavern, hoorah. So, yeah, I'm very happy about that.
the
Well,
start
Danger,
hasn't helped much either.
yeah, yeah, I kind of noticed what Will's saying about there's always going to be customers. That's true. In a free world, you're going to have people make bad decisions. That's the dangerous freedom, referencing an old friend of ours, rest in peace. That's the that's the thing is dangerous freedom means bad choices. The repeating of the bad choices, that's where there's a problem. I look at it this way too. Some of this could be a sop, and I read the synopsis years ago, and I saw from start to finish on YouTube. You can watch it for free, folks. Scanner Darkly. Not just because there's a cameo by Alex Jones, but I wanted to see what the whole plot line was about the undercover drug agent and this and that. And I was like, huh, interesting. That points exactly to what our research about the CIA running the opium and, Scanner Darkly, for a film for its time, I could see why it probably pressed the wrong buttons in the establishment, because it didn't like them being snitched. Yeah, the biggest gun runners work for the government, or excuse me, not just gun runners, but the biggest drug runners work for the government, and
Yes.
they create these addicts, and then the addicts, you know, fall victim to different issues, whether it's overdoses or they become part of the system, or you know, whatever it is. America, yes, America's going to have addicts, but the flip side is, do we encourage the addicts to get so down the rabbit hole that they basically not it's not even that they don't live their potential, because that's a choice. You can choose not to live your potential. It's when you choose to become a parasite on others. In other words, you create the initial trespasses, you break the common law. It goes from no victim, no crime, and don't harm your neighbor, to you harm your neighbor because you take their catalytic converter, or you harm your neighbor because uh, in your crazy drugged out mind, you think if you steal their dog and put up posters for a reward, somehow when you return the reward, you're going to get the reward for the dog or whatever. Yeah, there is a line in this nation where we have. Is America a sick nation? It seems that we are. Do we want to take our medicine? I don't know if enough Americans want to take their medicine, but you know,
No.
I, I have to say this: if it weren't for the homeless, I would have less material to disprove the COVID hoax. So
Yes.
I, when
Or-
I work at a job where I have to get the homeless out at the time off the church steps and away from that church, and we're next door to a hospital that's completely empty, and the homeless aren't dropping dead or going into that hospital for COVID treatment, and they're supposed to
Mhm.
be the people with the worst health, huh? Visibly, stuff isn't adding up. On top of everything I'm listening to in alternative media and other friends I'm in touch with, and they're reporting, you see, folks,
Yeah.
everything does have its place. I just don't want these people to fry their brains out, and basically it's a slow suicide. And yeah, suicide's a choice, but it's not one I encourage. I don't know if that
No,
makes sense.
it does. I know. I shouldn't be smoking, but I do.
Yeah, it's a thing, but this is something, Bonnie, you might be able to appreciate, is that when the founders were making cigarettes, or excuse me, tobacco,
Hmm.
they were rolling it up either in paper of their own, or they were putting it into a pipe. It wasn't
Yes.
this chemically processed, mass produced, geoengineered tobacco, and that goes for the cannabis crowd too. We know you guys are making all your strains and Now, there's corporate cannabis out there. The point was the stuff the farmers were closer to the earth, knew where they got their tobacco or their cannabis from, and you didn't have all these chemicals involved in the process. I make a simple argument for everybody who rolls their own smoke, be it tobacco or cannabis, and you're using rolling paper. Are your rolling papers bleached, or are they made of natural paper and pulp that haven't been tainted by being bleached white yet? Just that little difference alone. If your paper's bleached, there's chlorine in it. You're smoking chlorine, which is an irritant to your, lungs and your sinuses and the lining of your throat. So right
Yep.
there, for everyone who's smoking something with a white colored rolling paper, you're going to be getting sick. And then B. Charming pointed out, no filter is correct. Do you think Ben Franklin, or going further back, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans, where they had the peace pipe, I think they were putting filters and chemicals into their pipe they smoked? No.
No.
That. Yeah. And you should know something potentially bad when you could take all these guys at a saloon, they're all spitting in tobacco into a bucket. You pour that tobacco spit onto someone, they have a heart attack. Yeah, that's not necessarily a good thing, folks. But conversely, do I say you can't be allowed to smoke? No. Your body, your choice. Funny how during COVID, it's not our body and it's not our choice. But,
Right. But for
you know.
everything else, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard W saying never smoke again after what I've seen. My mother was a nurse and threatened me with pictures of people from the cancer ward. So yeah, I'm not a fan of tobacco. But again, that's also from chewing tobacco or from people smoking nonstop 24/7. So yeah, Scrimshaw's making a point too with the Chinese pot growers. Yeah, they've been spiking the cannabis supplies locally and at the dispensary. Some of these people are getting tainted product. I know someone who worked at a vape manufacturing place here in Riverside County. Her place was raided by the feds because they said the Chinese had tainted the supplies they had sent them.
Oh,
And,
no.
and this was like a month before COVID hit the news. Remember, guys, everyone was vaping and we were hearing about popcorn lung. How come we don't hear about popcorn lung, but we heard about COVID a month later? What happened to popcorn lung and vaping, right?
Yep.
You see how that all kind of works together? Now, me, I don't smoke and I don't vape, so I don't got to worry about it. But you know what? I don't want you guys getting sick from tainted supplies or the government saying you don't have a right. But at the same time, I don't want you breaking into your neighbor's house and stealing their VCR. God, I'm old. Or stealing their CD player. God, I'm even older. Or stealing their PlayStation. Oh, now I'm really showing my age. What about their Xbox? Anyway, I don't want you to be so dependent on a substance you're breaking into someone's home to support your habit.
Yeah,
So-
but remember when the cell phones even first came out, they had all these warnings on it. You don't see those anymore
That's the
because they don't give them to you.
There's that. And I'll be honest, you guys want to think about the cell phone issue. Those of us who are Marines and we work around communications, yeah, we kind of tend to get cancer. It just somehow all those radio and those 15-foot antenna, 12-foot antenna backpacks, yeah, just I don't know. It just seems to happen.
Yeah.
So, some of us, I have a suspicion, might even run around with it. It's undiagnosed until we're older. Especially if we're not particularly fond of going to the hospitals and stuff of that sort.
Yeah.
And then there are some of us we know. I'm not saying that even in our chats, we've had the pleasure of some people that drop into our chats. We know their prior service and they have these illnesses. We can't say it's from a vaccine or from their MOS being around communications or being around Agent Orange or whatever. But,
Hmm.
if you were to take a dartboard out, you'd be pretty close to the target,
Yep. My stepfather had the Agent Orange.
Yep. I know someone who no autism in his family. He served in Vietnam. got that Agent Orange on. One kid's Asperger's, and the other kid is full blown autism. And
Oh,
he
wow.
wasn't into vaccinating kids, but that is what it is. That stuff was messing with people's DNA, and we're supposed to again trust them. 3 W's for the microwave every day. Welcome to my club.
I do too.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I did the radiation meter, when I did it at the computer, it went pshoo, way up.
Yep.
When I had
Of
the
course.
microwave turned on and did it in front of the microwave, it didn't move. I think they're building them better now, but at the same time, that's the outside. It's what you're putting inside, I guess, that's getting
Correct.
nuked. I don't know.
The microwave is shielded ideally, so you're not getting frazzled or fried or whatever term you want to use from it.
Yes.
Inside the microwave, it's a different story. That's why you throw in the aluminum. You can see the lightning bolts, and then your microwave blows up on you.
Right.
Don't do that. If any of you are tempted, don't. Anyway, the food that you irradiate, the issue is that the food in there still has its electrons bouncing around and all of that. So that's kind of why you want to let your food cool down. And in theory, some of that radiation should drift off from it, after a couple minutes. You eat something hot out of the microwave, yeah, you're going to burn your mouth, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scrimshaw's pointing out, too, about the natural doctors being taken out. Yep, I'm aware of that, too. Yeah, Cheryl's making a good point, Bonnie. If you were to take the meter and actually scan the food, you can see if the food is tainted. Because
Yeah.
I'm a microwave ninja myself, but I don't really seem to have issues from that I know of, other than maybe the food has preservatives. But I don't eat microwave every day. Like today, I ate some sandwiches I made out of the fridge, just simple bologna, mustard, and hamburger buns that were wheat. Because why not? So.
Bruce, Central Time's the only time. Just saying.
Yeah, Will Dangerous said microwave is also good for fast charging cell phones. Yeah, for about 1 or 2 seconds, and then poop.
I was gonna say, wait, what?
Yeah, you gotta have a sense of humor with some of these topics. But they had a fellow who's on InfoWars this week, and they did a thing. Ricky, if he was here, he could repost the link. He shared it with me earlier. Well, yeah, you had people because of the mRNA nanotech. They were scanning people, and people were basically pinging from the nanotech inside of them on radiation meters, or you're picking up signals off of them, base of the neck, and other areas where the material might, collect in your bloodstream and form small clots and things. And then they were even getting pings off people that were buried underground that had died from the COVID vaccine. So, in a sense, our concerns, we're in I don't want to say we're in a brave new world or that we're in the new world order, but we are in a period of human history that, because our history has been hidden, we don't know if our forebears was for. They say history repeats. It rhymes, but the problem is, what do you do when you don't know what the beat of the original rhyme is?
Yeah.
That's where people get confused. Did we used to have high-tech stuff? Well, they took that ground radar and scanned under the pyramids, and they found these pillars that may have been electric coils. Okay, great. Well, that raises more questions. If those things were generating electricity, how much electricity were they generating, and did it go around the planet at one time, or was it just regional to Egypt and the Middle East?
Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Correct. But the thing I would look at is, I don't think we've had times where we haven't had some type of technology that was bad for us as a people. It was letting it get out of control, and again, either become like the drug epidemic, where it
Yes.
becomes a vice or it becomes a tool of enslavement. And, you know, different drugs, that's definitely signs of enslavement there. People become addicts, like I said.
Yeah.
Wow, we're getting some comments in tonight. Let me see here. They're going a little faster than
We used,
Scrimshaw asked the question, why aren't you
I'm sorry.
taking out the same issue? Yeah, sorry, go ahead with bees. I'm going to follow up on Scrimshaw's in a second. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Well, from what I understand, yes, but who knows? Um, we spoke about that last week with the monkeys, that mysteriously this trailer flips over and these monkeys escape, and but there's no truck and no driver, and they're only in wooden crates because that's the way you transport animals of any kind somewhere. No, the
I
whole
have
thing
to ask. I
is
have to
very.
ask real quick. We're to make clear of this, Bonnie. We're
Mhm.
referencing the monkeys that escaped from a biolab, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Was there 12 of them?
there was 21 of them, and
Oh,
the story keeps changing. First, they said there was 3 running loose. Then they said there was only 1 running loose. First, they said they were infected with disease. Then they said no, they weren't. It keeps flip flopping around, you know.
very curious. Also, 12 being the inversion of 21, so
Yes.
interesting. But when Scrimshaw's citing the case of the 7 farmers, the 7 holistic people dying,
Hmm.
on the other end of it, we had 12 members of the uh, what is it, the ALD or AFL, whatever the party is in Germany. They were going to have their elections, and in under a month, uh, nearly a dozen members of that party just die mysteriously because the German government scared these folks who are Germany first are going to take back their government from the current powers that be.
Yeah.
So yeah, is it coincidence? Yeah, it's coincidence if you're not paying attention. But once is, bad luck, twice is happenstance, 3 times is enemy action. I'm paraphrasing Ian Fleming, and he would probably know.
Yeah. I just think that they're rearranging things the way they want.
Yep. And that's kind of the thing is that if they keep it up, they're going to be rearranging the history of this country and the history of our documents to where eventually they'll tell us that those documents never existed.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't seen it, if you're in the younger audience, or if it's 10 or 100 years from now and you come across this recording, right? If you see a thing called the Twilight Show and you see the obsolete man, you will know the world we are dealing with. It's not quite as blatant, but it is a summary of where we're at as a people. And I kind of identify myself as a librarian. So if you've seen the film or the obsolete man, or if you've seen Soylent Green and you've seen the librarians in Soylent Green, you know,
Oh,
uh, that's kind of how it is that the world's getting to where it's forgetting its history. It's forgetting that, hey, these inventions and these substances and these things, they exist, but they are not everything. So you got to get your head on straight. You got to be willing to get with your neighbors when you want to get things done, and you got to be willing to, just find what motivates you. If you're not motivated, you're just cruising, and eventually you're going to have a flat.
Yep. G20 Summit, South Africa.
Wildlife. Are you telling me that they're going to hold a summit in South Africa and they're going to try to pass off that there's not trouble there? Oh, I see an opportunity for the globalists. I'm just saying.
Yep.
I happen to remember when Donald Trump had South Africa White House recently. So that was very entertaining.
Well, you sound like you're getting tired and nobody else showed up, so I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. Better hungry than hangry.
Yes. But I really appreciate you helping me out with this one, Sean. It was a big one.
Well, you see too, when we take that product, artificial, we got good stuff in it, and you could, like I said, you could tell where there's some things where it was like, you could see where the AI was not quite giving all the backstory it could have. But
Mm-hmm.
that's how you, one of those tools, whether it's Chat GPT or Grok or Lavender or whatever, you use them to compile the information you need, and then you can go from there and see if you need more information and so on. But don't trust it at face value. You know, if Grok's full text wasn't correct, well, I had Cornell to do a little side by side. So that's always, what you do is just learn what the tools are, learn what the technology are, but don't become a slave to them. You know, you don't make it where you gotta like walk around with a cell phone taped to your head 24/7, or
Yes.
or a power drill bolted to your arm. We're not meant to be cyborgs.
Right. Thank you, Brew. Thank you all for being here, all your input. Y'all make it fun.
We'll be backstage for a little bit for you guys who want to follow further in on the Constitution stuff or just conversation in general. But we do appreciate y'all coming out tonight.
Yeah.
Some of these amendments are not exactly the most thrilling because of them, but as we saw in 2020, the 12th Amendment was revisited in several cases. So,
Yes. And it helps to
stay
know
up
what
on your.
they're talking about when they bring them up.
Correct. And there's a lot with 2020 we can go into in multiple different amendments. So,
Yes.
by the way, those problems have been solved. So we got to solve those problems still, everybody.
Yes. All right, y'all. I'm going to close this one up. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good night.